I'm Ginny Robertson, founder of the On Purpose Woman Global Community and the founder and publisher of On Purpose Woman magazine. I'm here with Tamara Robinson to talk about her article in the January-February issue of On Purpose Woman magazine. Thank you for being with me, Tamara.
Thank you, Jenny. Thanks. I'm happy to be here.
I'm happy to see your smiling face. I love your energy. I always love your energy. So
Oh, thank you. I miss seeing you.
I miss seeing you as well. But I am excited to chat with you about your article. But first, what do you want our viewers to know about you?
Well, like you said, I'm Tamara Robinson, and I am a pleasure and intimacy coach for women over 40 specifically. And I basically help women rediscover and reconnect with their pleasure in order to experience deeper levels of intimacy in their lives.
Okay. Can't have too much of that, can we?
Can never have too much of that, especially right now. I mean, right? Let's
Yeah.
add a little pleasure into our lives
There
right
you
now.
go. There you
Yeah.
go. Well, your article is the first in a series that you're writing called Unlocking the Pleasure Portal. So
Mhm.
tell us about the series and what inspired you to write it.
Well, the series, I've got my notes here. So it's Unlocking the Pleasure Portal, Discovering the Keys to Enhanced Passion, Pleasure, Intimacy, and Connection. And so this idea came about, I guess I mentioned it to you back in December
Mhm.
because I felt like I didn't write as much as I wanted to last year. I guess I got just distracted with different things. But I really love the idea of a series because I can focus on a particular topic and really do a deep dive on that
Mhm.
topic. And the idea behind unlocking the pleasure portal just came about from conversations I was having online with women through my social media posts, through maybe even DMs that women have been sending me regarding their pleasure and intimacy or just sex and intimacy. I say pleasure because it's a little softer,
Mhm.
instead of just coming out and saying sex and intimacy, because it's not just about sex. It is about the pleasure and the sensations that we feel within. But what I was noticing, there was like a common theme, because I guess when I'm in a coaching mode or in my coaching, when I have my coaching hat on, I try to break down, when there is a question or when there is a concern, I try to get to the underlying issue behind it. And so I noticed a common theme where it seemed like, regardless of the question, women basically were really just not understanding themselves, not understanding the pleasure and the sensations or the sensuality within themselves. And so I thought, well, what can I do? And I just started brainstorming ideas. And I said, oh, we can unlock this. We can unlock the pleasure that's within your body, within yourself, to help women then embrace who they are. And in each article, I try to add a little personal story because a lot of this is connecting to the I'll say pleasure awakening that I had when I turned 40. And so 10 years ago when I had that awakening, I'm starting to connect some of that to what I'm writing in the articles. Yeah.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up because that was going to be my next question to actually have you talk about what was going on when you turned 40. But before that, I didn't know I was going to ask you this, but what came up for me when you were talking about pleasure and why you used that word, I think, and I don't know if you agree with this or not, that a lot of women have a bigger issue with the word pleasure than with the word sex because
Well,
it implies almost like something that, oh, is that okay for me to like, old stuff, just old
yes.
norms and yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
What have you found around that?
Well, it's twofold because the I've noticed, at least with the some of the content that I post, the algorithms don't like the word sex. So I had to change it a little bit.
Okay.
Because I used to, I like when I first started with posting on online, I also did a boudoir photo shoot, and so some of that was being like censored, and so I thought, well, if I want my content to get out, I want to fall into the lines of the algorithms, but I also want to use terms that my niche audience or the women that I'm talking to can relate to. So
Yeah.
pleasure is a little softer, and I still bring up the word sex, but pleasure, I like using the words pleasure and desire because it's a way to break down those societal norms. Because that's
Hmm.
another thing that I've noticed in some of the conversations that I've had online there's been the extreme of a woman saying, well, you know, I feel like my pleasure is for my partner, for whether it's their husband, their wife, their girlfriend, their boyfriend, whatever. I don't discriminate on who I coach. And so, they feel that they can't meet the standard maybe, or whatever it is that their partner wants them to do, so they feel less than, or they feel unsure of how to find their own pleasure in that. And then there's been the opposite extreme, where there are women who maybe want to try new things, or who feel like this abundance of pleasure, which we're not, society can sometimes tell us we're not supposed to feel all these things,
Right.
and then they're hesitant to share what they feel, or maybe something new that they want to bring into their relationship.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, what was going on for you when you turned 40?
Wow. Okay. So when I turned 40, I had been divorced for a couple years. I think by 40, I was divorced maybe 5 years, and my daughter was 10. And so I was really trying to understand myself again, because I think society puts women into different boxes. So when you're married, you're supposed to do this. When you're a mother, you're supposed to do this. Even when you're over 40, it seems like, if you look on the internet sometimes, if you're over 40, your life is over. Like, you're supposed to just like, just hide, and not be seen. And I think at that time, especially, I think there was a connection between the age of my daughter as well, because she was a little bit more, I mean, 10 is not independent, but she, I didn't have to like baby her. She was,
Hmm.
I was able to, take her to class, take her to her dance classes, or she was, going to sleepovers and things. And I was able to then focus a little bit more on myself. And that's when I started taking pole dancing classes for fitness. That was like one of my fitness classes. And I also started to study female orgasms. How that came about, I don't remember. I don't remember,
You were just
but
on the path to what you're doing now. That was.
exactly. That's what I say. There was a reason for it. I think it was a
Mhm.
blog post that I saw, and I'm like, "Oh, this is interesting." And I think I go on deep dives a lot. I think that's where I love to research different
Mhm.
topics. And so, because I had never really um I can say that I don't think I ever really understood pleasure and orgasms, even at the age of 40, after being married and having a child. I didn't truly understand my own body. And I think by studying female orgasm, that not only put me on a path to what I'm doing now, but it put me on a path to just understanding who I was. And so I feel like, to bring it back to the article, I think I was unlocking my pleasure portal at the age of 40 without realizing that I really didn't know who I was back then. And also, by being a divorced woman, I was then able to rediscover who I was.
Great, thank you for that. And I'm realizing that, we talked about the series title, but I didn't mention the actual title of your article, which is Pleasure Pioneers, Embracing New Frontiers of Intimacy. And it's about exploring how to navigate uncharted territories in personal pleasure and intimacy after 40.
Hmm.
So, or if you're 30 and you're still and you don't feel like you're there yet, you could read this article as well.
Yes,
And so,
definitely.
why explore new sexual frontiers?
Well, it's always good to learn something new. And when we can learn something new about ourselves, that's great too. And I feel like as we get older, sometimes, at least this is what I've learned from myself and with talking with other women, is sometimes our bodies change, obviously, as we get older, and we may not truly understand how our bodies or how our new life fits into our surroundings, or fits into this new part of life. Whether maybe you are divorced, and maybe you have to figure out, well, how do I date, and how do I
Mhm.
navigate dating and enjoy this, this new area of dating. Or maybe you're an empty nester, and your children are either out of the house completely, or they're in college, like my daughter is. Like, that's where I am now, is understanding life as an empty nester, partial empty nester, and then menopause. That's a new thing too, And I think it's great to explore new frontiers. I call us the pleasure pioneers, because we're evolving, our bodies are evolving, our lives are evolving, and so our pleasure needs to evolve with that too. Because I I can honestly say that the way that I saw sex and intimacy at 20 is completely different, or 20 or 30 is completely different from what I see it now, because I truly didn't know who I was back then, because it wasn't discussed when I was growing up. So I didn't know. There was a lot about myself that I didn't know.
Yeah. There weren't great role models for doing that for
Yes. I
because
think the only one we had was Dr. Ruth.
and I think I was already out in the world when Dr. Ruth came out, so I didn't have Dr. Ruth. So, and
Okay.
my mother was not. This was not something she was going to talk about. She gave me that book about menstrual periods. It was called
Hmm.
Growing Up and Liking It. She gave it to me to read.
Growing up and liking it.
That was the name of this booklet about getting your periods, and it was called Growing Up and Liking It. Which I guess it
Oh,
could have been, more negative than that. It was like growing up and liking it. So it's kind
right.
of a positive little spin, but I think she might have asked me one time if I had questions, but she wasn't prepared to answer the questions that I had. So
Right.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, similar experience. There was a book what was it? I think the book was called How Babies Are Made. And it was like a
Oh,
cartoon looking book, but there was no discussion about it. It was just like this cartoon book, and it started with animals like dogs and cats. Like each page showed you like dogs and cats, and then it showed plants, how plants like regenerate, and then the very last page of the book was humans, how humans make babies. And I distinctly remember having that book on the bookshelf in the house. Yeah, so there were no discussions, because I grew up in a very religious household, so that we never talked about sex. I was lucky to even get a conversation about my period, so about my menstrual cycle. So
yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Well, you're making up for that now. So there you go.
Yes,
Thank you.
definitely.
Thank you for doing this work for other women who maybe
Well,
have had the
thank
same
you. Thank you.
experiences.
Hmm.
Now, in your article, you share 4 ways that we can navigate the uncharted territory. And I'm going to say what those are: through self discovery, through communication, through education, and through community. I'd like for you to talk about one of those because we want people to go to read your article to find out the rest. And let me just say, you can read Tamara's article on my website, which is OPWGC, that stands for On Purpose Woman Global Community, opwgc.com/magazine. And that link will be in the um, text. I'm losing my words here. Text of the video as soon as I get to it after we hang up here, because Zoom only lets you put so many words in your description. So we will have all that information and all of Tamara's contact information as well. So out of those 4 things, which one do you most want to talk about today?
I think self-discovery, because I feel like that's the first one, but I feel like it's the most important one, because if we don't understand ourselves, from our bodies, our brains, our life, whatever, if we don't understand, then it's difficult to share that with someone else. And if
Mm,
you're in a relationship with someone that you're exploring intimacy with, if you don't truly understand what brings you pleasure, you can't then communicate that, or you can't share that with the other
right.
person. And unfortunately, a lot of women think that the pleasure is for the other person, it's for the man, or it's for their partner, and they completely take themselves out of the process, out of the experience of the pleasure. So I really feel that self-discovery, and self-discovery can be many different things, from knowing what turns you on, or even knowing what makes you like connecting with the sensations in your body, because it's not that's I think that's another reason why I like to use the words pleasure and desire as opposed to sex, because it's not always about sex. Sometimes it's really is just connecting with your body, and um embracing our bodies, embracing the changes, embracing everything about ourselves, in order to truly understand how to bring pleasure into our lives, and remain in a space of pleasure, and then we can then share that with the other person in our
Yeah.
lives. Hmm.
Thank you. Sometimes it's about chocolate, right? It's like,
That's right.
it's about all those indulgent and nice indulgent
Indulgence.
things.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. And indulgent should be seen as a really positive word, but it's not usually, is it?
It
Oh,
isn't.
you're
And
so self-indulgent.
I know. And I think that's another reason why I love this series, is because I want to like I know I don't want to say it's impossible to break through societal norms, but there's so many um like there's so many boxes that society wants to place us in, but we don't need to be there. Like the worst thing,
Mhm.
it's not a bad thing if society wants to put you in those boxes, but what's even worse is if you allow yourself to be in that box and stay there. And so I think I want to, help to, liberate us. We don't have to be in those boxes. Unless you want to, but
Unless you want to, yeah.
indulge in some chocolate, indulge in, we don't have to eat fruit every day. Just,
Right, right, right. Yeah.
take a bubble
I
bath,
love that
like
though. It's
I
one
mentioned.
thing if society puts you in a box. It's another
Yes,
thing entirely if you put yourself in the box
if you put
because you're in
yourself in it.
charge of you're in charge of getting out of that box and you
Exactly.
can do it. Yes, I love that. Thank you.
Yeah.
I know I'm saying I love that a lot, but I am loving it a lot. Tell us how our viewers can find out more about you.
Oh, yes. Well, I'm on social media. I'm on TikTok and Instagram. I don't know how long we're gonna have TikTok, but I'm there. And Facebook. And I made it really easy. I'm Passion Pleasure Coach on all those platforms. I think my Facebook page is Passion Coach Tamara, I think, but it's still that same idea, Passion Pleasure Coach. And you can also go to passionpleasurecoach.com where you can find out, all my links to my social media is there. And there's different ways that you can work with me, whether it's to schedule an appointment, or I also have a link to some pleasure tools, some pleasure toys on passionpleasurecoach.com. So there's different ways that people can connect with me from that page.
Okay. And we will have Tamara's website, whatever else you gave us for your bio. And but you can go to her website. That will be in the text of the video. And you can find out all those other places that you can connect with her. Is there anything coming up or special that you want to tell us about?
Yeah, I just I don't want to say launch. I'm sharing my new ebook. I created a course on alpha females. That was another discussion that I was having with a lot of women, was successful women who were successful in their careers, but then also wanted to be successful in love, whether they were in a
Mm.
relationship or looking for love. So I have a new ebook titled Alpha Female Love, The Alpha Female's Guide to Balancing Business and Love. And that can be found at alphafemalelove.com.
Wow. Will you send me the link to that? Because I don't know that we have that. Will you send that to me and I'll add it in to the
Okay.
text for the video? Because I would love for people to know about that as well.
Okay, great. Thank
Well,
you.
as we wrap up, I'd love for you to share a final thought with our viewers.
I think I want to go back to that comment that you mentioned earlier where I said it's okay if society puts you in a box, but it's a real terrible thing, detrimental thing for you to put yourself in that box and then stay in that box,
Mhm.
especially if you really don't want to be there. Self-discovery is a great way to figure out not necessarily what box you fit into, but to figure out how you can fit into the world around you, and then um, enjoy and consume as much pleasure as you truly want to.
Yes. And self-discovery also gets you out of any other boxes that people have tried to put you in or that you've put yourself in because they're all connected. They're all
Yes,
connected. Once you start to really discover who you are, you can't stay in those boxes.
you can't stay in those boxes, and
And
people will
yeah,
try, but
yeah.
they can't put you in those
Yes.
boxes.
Yes. Well, I want to mention that Tamara's next article, which will publish on March 1st, is called O is for Orgasmic Offerings. Look for the truth about female pleasure, where you will debunk and illuminate facts about women's sexual responses and orgasmic potential. So all that studying you've done
Yes,
about
it's
female
coming out now.
orgasm, you're going to be writing about that. That will be out on March 1st. If you're not on our email list, go to my website and get on. If you are, please check out the magazine when it drops on March 1st. And I guess I want to say thank you. Thank you, Tamara,
Thank
for sharing
you.
your wisdom and your passion with
Yes,
us. I really appreciate you.
thank you. I love being here.
And I want to thank you for watching the Real Women, Real Purpose talk show. And for more interviews with amazing, brilliant women living their lives on purpose and sharing their unique gifts on the planet, check out our YouTube channel, which is also in the text of this video. Thanks for watching.